Hey, Marty, thanks so much for joining me today. We go back a long way. We had a little bit of a pre-green room discussion about all the family stuff and all the great things that go on between your company and our company. But before we jump in, I'd like to throw it to you to kind of introduce who you are, what you do, and who you work for.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Craig. It's a pleasure to be here. And first of all, thanks. Obviously we do go back a long way. OT Group. I remember when we were just sort of starting out and growing our MSP business here at Field Effect, the Onit and OT team, where you guys were sort of some initial partners of ours that really helped shape the way that we went to market and went about our partnership. So certainly appreciate that. So my role here, I'm the VP of sales here at Field Effect, and really my job is to help foster partner relationships and sort of be that conduit between our partners and the way that they help deliver our services to end users. So Field Effect is a cybersecurity company, Canadian based, Canadian owned and started. We've got a really neat founder story that we can get into, but I won't necessarily bore everyone here with it. But essentially, we're started by ex sort of CSIS, communication security establishment, ex government intelligence spies, we'll call them, who know their way around the cybersecurity market at national intelligence levels and sort of know what businesses need to be protected. Saw a gap in the market with current tool sets and sort of help develop that in a way that it could be delivered through IT and managed service providers like yourselves to help protect specifically more so mid-sized and small to medium-sized businesses who sort of lack the tools and resources to be protected from today's threats. So that's what we do, primarily focusing in something called managed detection and response, which we can get into. But we offer a whole host of other, incident response and cybersecurity services to help people out, help them from getting in trouble. But if they do get in trouble, help them out from there as well, too.
Yeah, the incident response stuff is never a good call. We try to avoid those as much as we can, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's always the worst day for someone. So we
for sure. I always joke that I've seen people age 30 years in 3 days. So we want to avoid that, which is why we're talking. So
exactly.
So maybe just like pretend I'm a layman, that I'm not in the industry. What's the difference between like antivirus and what Field Effect does?
Yeah, for sure. So let's take it back. I mean, antivirus is, we would call that, legacy technology. Obviously it's something that came out 10, 15 years ago now. And we know that the cybersecurity industry has transitioned since then. So that technology is not going to work today, but people say, I have antivirus, I'm protected. It's got virus in the name, right? So I'm protected, but really what antivirus does is it focuses on a known set of bad things. We call them signatures, but really what it is it's a list of things that are known bad. And if a threat comes in and one of those things is on the list, it blocks it. Well, the problem today with just going with traditional antivirus is we really need continuous monitoring in place. Threat actors are a lot smarter. When the threat surface, I'll just define that. A threat surface is basically anywhere that an attacker could get into your organization. And that's anything that's connected to the internet. And that could be through the cloud, through your email, through vulnerabilities inside your network and software. Unfortunately, software has vulnerabilities that they have to get in through, or could be through what we call your endpoints, so your laptops or your workstations. So what we focus on is continuous monitoring, right? And what that means is we're monitoring all of those things 24/7, 365, and we're looking for things that is abnormal behavior. So things that, antivirus might not catch would be something like we call a 0-day vulnerability. So a new vulnerability pops up in a system, an attacker is going to exploit that and get in, and that's not on that list of signatures yet, right? Behavioral things. So, I'm Marty, I work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I received an email from Microsoft that says, change your password. It looked like it came from Microsoft. It was very well crafted. I go ahead, I change my password, I put in my old credentials, given my credentials away to an attacker. They're now inside my inbox doing a whole bunch of bad things. Well, we would look and say, why is Marty, who works 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, suddenly poking around in the finance folder at 2 a.m. on a Saturday and pulling down large amounts of data? right? Those are things that are abnormal to what Marty would do. And we would go ahead and be able to help in conjunction with the folks at Onit lock that account or take mitigation steps. So what we're focused on is the behavior, right? You shouldn't click on this link, and it's Microsoft Word is not supposed to spawn this piece of software in the background that it typically wouldn't. So just to sort of tie that into a bow, I would say that the biggest difference now is you need continuous monitoring. You need it to be looking at the cloud, the network, and the endpoint, and just focusing on the known is not good enough. We really focus on behavior, right? So what is abnormal behavior, and that allows us to see things that that we can block. It might be other examples would be me having my privileges escalated to be an administrator, so that would give someone the keys to the castle to do a lot of other really bad things, right?
Right. Yeah.
Backups being encrypted, or things that are abnormal. We want to catch them well before it gets to the point of impact. We want to catch the things very early on. As soon as we see things that are abnormal, that's where we want to block them, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I think that's a really detailed description. I often call, you kind of touched on this, that antivirus is looking for the known. Well, in today's world of AI and cybersecurity ransomware groups being in the multi-trillion dollars of revenue globally, you have to focus on what's not known. Those ransom groups, for lack of a better word, are businesses now, and they're incentivized to try and figure out how to trick antivirus or get past antivirus. And it really does take a solution like Field Effects MDR to look beyond recognizing something. So a great analogy would be, I know what a car is, but a truck isn't a car. Do I stop the truck or don't I stop the truck? So
Yeah.
whereas if from a pattern you go, well, they both roll down the highway, they both have a steering wheel, they both have 4 tires, and you can recognize that they're similar enough that you don't need a defined pattern to say block this thing.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's crazy. These attackers can download these tools on the dark web. They have partner programs like like we would together. And attackers are opportunistic and targeted in some ways, but in some ways they're not. They have tools where they can scan the internet and just look for open vulnerabilities and open ports, right? So
Yeah.
they'll scan and they'll look for that open door in your business, and they don't really care what business you are, who you're from, or where you're from. They just know that you're an easy target, and that's a way in. And another analogy, like I would liken it to going to the dentist, right? You brush your teeth, you floss, you stay on top of your teeth, you're not going to get cavities. IT is very much the same way. If we're continuously monitoring, we're letting you know about your systems that have vulnerabilities, we're making sure that they stay patched, we're making sure that we stay on top of these things and closing these doors before giving attackers that opportunity. You don't end up with a cavity or a root canal, and the breach never happens.
I think that's a great example. Yeah, we kind of talked on the cybersecurity protection side of monitoring behavior, but one of the things we didn't really dive deeply into is your ability to alert folks like us or end customers that they have vulnerabilities on their network that they wouldn't otherwise be aware of. So I know the industry calls that threat hunting. Most end users, people don't understand what that means, but essentially always looking for the next vector that somebody might leverage. And again, you know me, Marty, I'm an analogy guy. I think my best analogy is, you want your IT to be protected, but not limit your business. So if you think of it as though I was somebody trying to break into cars in a parking lot, the likelihood is I'm going to go look for doors that are open or windows that are down before I start smashing windows to try and get in. So, you don't want to leave that super valuable diamond ring on the front seat of your laptop where somebody goes, I'm going to break the window because I want that. So you want to, obfuscate your data as much as you can, but make it just more challenging. I think, recognizing that these are businesses, the bad guys are businesses, they're looking for low-hanging opportunities. Like the faster they can get in, get out, and make money, the better for them. So, make sure your doors are locked, essentially. And MDR, Field Effects MDR, does a great job of going, hey, this door is now open, and you didn't even know the door was there. So as you talked about with zero-day vulnerabilities, I know today's June 5th, yesterday, Google released a critical patch for Chrome. on a brand new vulnerability. They haven't, as of today, haven't even really talked about what the vulnerability is, other than they've released a patch for it. So that's a great example of a door that didn't even exist yesterday, and now is a door you have to be aware of that you have and is unlocked.
Yeah, and by the way, like our security researchers find those every day, and we report them to Microsoft. Like we do the good thing that we're supposed to do, but sometimes it could take 2 months for them to release it into their cycle to the wild, right? And so I always say, like if you talk to one of our pros, like you get that update, update your Chrome or update on your iPhone. I'll do that later. Well, it's listing all these bugs that need to be updated, and that's really a blueprint for that attacker. So, like you said, a really big part of what we're doing is the proactive nature and closing that up, so that if that attacker is walking down the street, you want to be the house with the closed doors and the locked fence and the video cameras. You don't want to be the house with the doors wide open and the windows open, and that's just low hanging fruit that they're going to go for.
100%. I'm going to walk right through that door.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Really appreciate that. So one of the things we didn't talk about yet is the automated response side. So there's a lot of platforms that have sort of automated response. I obviously got a little bit of insight into your platform. We've worked together a long time,
yeah,
where it's both automated and security staff. Can you talk a little bit about, let's say something bad does happen. We'll use your example. I open up a Word document, it triggers off some process that isn't normal, and things start to happen. What does it look like with Field Effect implemented on a system? How does it help me?
Yeah, for sure. So we've got a few different ways in which we can automate that response, and that's a huge part actually of our service. Is a big part of cybersecurity is there is so much data and so much information now. So a big part of what our system is doing is aggregating those large data sets together, and really taking that burden off of internal IT teams that may not have 20, 25 security professionals watching around the clock to be able to block these things. Because guess what? Attacks unfortunately typically don't happen as Wednesday at 2 p.m. They happen Friday night of a long weekend, or
100%.
Music Friday, or whatever we call it. So we've got a few things in place. One of them is we have something called endpoint detection and response, which is sort of a behavioral analysis that's built into our endpoint agent, and it is going to automatically block ransomware in its tracks. So if you open up a Word document and that Word document tries doing a process in the background that is abnormal, we are just going to kill that in its tracks and absolutely stop that from happening. The other form that we have is something that we call active response. So active response would be where we have a human that is actually able to, lock a cloud account if we believe that it's been compromised. We have the ability to isolate one of your laptops off the network if we believe that there's enough suspicious behavior there, and then we can talk about it later. So some examples of that would be we see that and because we have full visibility on your workstation and in the cloud, we see that you typically work in Toronto, Canada, and you've logged in from Toronto, but 5 minutes later you logged in from Russia. But because we have visibility on your workstation is in Toronto. So you're not traveling to Russia. We have enough information there to know that that's probably not you. We have the ability to go ahead and lock that cloud account, make sure that there's no more access to it. And then, in conjunction with the folks at Onit, get in touch with the end user to make sure that we get things back up and running and nothing else bad happens.
Yeah, I agree. We see that a lot, especially post-COVID, post-C word, with things being more and more remote and hybrid, that we definitely see, people have decided they can work from Thailand, and kind of like when you go and travel with your Visa card, you may not tell the bank that you're traveling. Sometimes we see the same thing. So, we're always, with your help, being diligent and locking those accounts down and validating that they are actually traveling. Because as you said, the threat vectors, they come from everywhere, but they're generally not as active sort of in the North America space as they might be in some other ones.
Exactly, right. And we feed all that, and we know, like, we know where people typically work from. We know what devices they typically log in from. We know what hours they typically work. And sometimes, like, we had one the other day where we alerted where large amounts of data were being pulled down, and they said, that's not a threat actor, but it's actually that employee's last day tomorrow. So thank you very much, right? Because someone's pulling down data internally. Great example of something that no antivirus or anything is ever going to catch something like that. And that's something that we would be able to catch, right? Another one that we see a lot is inbox rule. So someone gets into your inbox. This happens a lot with financial redirection. So they will get into your inbox. They will send emails to someone to pay an invoice somewhere. They will have those emails deleted after they're sent, and they will have the responses go into a different folder, so that someone's inside your inbox and you never even know that's happening, right? We will see these inbox rules created. We know that's abnormal to your account. That's another situation where we might be able to step in and lock that account. And again, the key here is being able to do it 24/7. Because we can't expect IT teams and folks to be up all night on Saturday and things like that. And
well, especially in SMB, right? It's not
yeah,
like it's enterprise. I think that's a great one. Fund redirect is a great one to touch on, because at least most North American, or sorry, Canadian, I should say, most Canadian companies we work with, when you actually review the cyber insurance policies that they have, fund redirects are typically not covered. So it's something to be really aware of. Folks seem to think that cyber insurance and AV is enough, and to be quite honest today, it's just not. As you said, I mean, you need to have cyber insurance for sure, because bad things do happen. But AV is really, it's the Model T.
Yeah, it is.
It's not current anymore. Yeah.
It's legacy technology that, and the industry has, just like everything else in the world, right? Things evolve and things change, and we need to evolve the way. And I would liken it to, like, no different than physical security, right? Back in the day, you might have had a lock on your office door. Now you probably have some type of surveillance camera and video system, and what Field Effects MDR is very much like that, right? So instead of AV might have been that lock on your door, an MDR system would be not only locks on the doors, but locks on the windows, also video cameras in the house, so that when someone comes in, video cameras pointing up the hallway, and then a big laser beam on the safe, so that if they do happen to get to that point and through all the tripwires and cameras and everything else, you're able to block the bad thing when it happens as well too.
Yeah, I think to bring it down to sort of something a little more specific, like in our Simply the Best platform, Field Effect MDR is inclusion, and part of the reason we love it is it monitors your computer, your server, your cloud. So if you're Azure or Google, your Microsoft 365, we generally recommend Cisco Duo for MFA. So it monitors that. So you have one platform kind of monitoring most of what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Then I know you have a bunch of more integrations. So when people think about AV, like, all AV looks at is the computer or server it's installed on.
Exactly. And so what about things that you can't install? What
Smart
we call
TVs,
on
a smart thermostat,
exactly.
your voice IP phone sitting on your desk.
Yeah, if you're in manufacturing, a VNC machine or whatever, right? And so that stuff gets overlooked, and even actually, the evolution of AV would be something that we call endpoint detection and response. But even that, like, you need to be monitoring the cloud as well too, right? And so you need to be monitoring that Microsoft 365 and Google, because so many things going through there. So again, like, why would you lock your front door but not your back door, right? So again, having that holistic monitoring, it also allows us to take much quicker and more precise detection, because we have that 360 helicopter view. Hey, maybe, again, back to that previous example, maybe we're seeing you log in from Thailand, but because we have visibility on your endpoint on your laptop's also in Thailand. So now it's like, okay, that person's actually might be traveling. So maybe we take a scalpel to the problem, and we're not locking them out immediately, and it's a bit more normal, right? So having that 360 view across it allows us to take much more precise detection and quicker detection as well too.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, you obviously at your shop have way more data than we do, but we're seeing less and less endpoint threats, unless users involved.
Yes.
So and obviously we have a cybersecurity training platform. People seem to forget, and customers seem to forget that people are still a big vector in this issue. But
Biggest,
but
maybe.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, right? But that's why your cloud components are so important.
Yeah.
Like we definitely see from our side, which again, much smaller data set than you see, is attacks at cloud infrastructure. M365, all of those things. It's a, I don't know, what do they call it, a honeypot. It's a bigger target with bigger fish at one point. So, if an end user clicks on an email, yeah, we see stuff on the endpoint. We do see things like you mentioned about anomalous downloading of data, which is sort of insider threat activity, is what we like to call it in the industry. But again, I think that if anybody watching this only gets that AV is server and desktop, laptop generally, and not anything else. Like everything else, so you've got your window locked and your garage door is down, but your front door is wide open. That would be something that would be great for people to understand, that they need to consider: how do I protect the cloud? How do I protect 365, Google, my Microsoft Authenticator, those kinds of things, because they're not a normal thought process for an SMB client.
They aren't. And like back to the signature and the list thing on the AV, guess what? Who else has access to that list? The threat actors, right? So
And you have billions of dollars to put it in a lab.
Exactly, right? So instead of 001 at the end of their code, they're going to change it to 003, and they're gonna try to get around it. So they have access to all those things too. And so again, the key today is really continuous monitoring and being proactive. Like really being proactive with security. You don't want to leave it to the goalie. You've got a shootout coming in and you've now allowed a breakaway and you're just leaving it to the goalie to try to happen. You want to defend those things before they get to that point. And you mentioned things like in cyber insurance and backup and you should have all those things in place as well too. But again, if we can proactively stop things before they happen, then we mitigate all the reputational damage, all the fallout, all the downtime, everything else that comes along with an attack. We can eliminate those before they happen.
Yeah, we won't get into your incident response today, because that's probably an episode for itself. But we can say, just so everybody who's listening, is you don't want that. That is not a place you want to be. This is really a case where an ounce of prevention is worth probably 40 pounds of cure. Try and avoid that at all, if at all possible.
We have us, and like I'll say it, unfortunately, when that happens, suddenly, the budget, like everything opens up and makes sense. We just had a situation where it was super unfortunate. It was a school board and they went for budget approval. And anyways, they decided to hold off for a bit and then they got hit. And now suddenly they're coming back and saying an ounce of prevention would have made a huge difference in this scenario. Right. And it's like anything else, right? You think of your house. If something happened to your house, you have home insurance, there's things you lose. You may get some things back. You maybe have to replace some things. They may not come back in the same form. A big thing that we're seeing now is extortion too on the dark web. So just because you're able to get your data back doesn't mean that someone hasn't taken copies of it. Someone's not selling your passwords on the dark web. Right. So someone's still been in your house taking pictures of your social insurance information and they now have access to that. And typically I think there's a stat 60% of businesses that get hit again within the next 18 months. Right. Those things are floating around there.
So. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And again, I think if people realize that this just, don't take it personally, it's a business. The bad guys are a business, and they're just looking to make money. So, protect yourselves with that knowledge. And again, I don't want to say it's not hard to protect yourself, but it's also not terribly hard either. So it's just a matter of making sure that you've got enough security that you are protected, but also not too much that you can't actually do your job. And that's really the what I feel the balance that Field Effect provides, is it gives us a great blanket of security across all the key areas you need to be protected, but you can still do your job. It's not locking down every single process. It's not every time a patch comes out, you've got to get it approved. It's monitoring and letting you do your job, and just it's that little thing on your shoulder watching to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really great point, because it's actually core to our philosophy is to let the business run, right? Let the business run and monitor and alert when bad things happen. And even back to our active response, we work in conjunction with you folks, and we can set those active response policies to what we call like limited, balanced, or aggressive, right? And
Yeah.
and you may tell us go limited on this server. It's mission critical. If we take this thing down, we can't take in sales, and so
Payroll's not running.
you better be sure. But
Yep.
then there's situations where it's like, I want to be aggressive on the CEO's laptop. He's a happy clicker, or whatever it might be. Or we would rather shoot first and ask questions later. So we tailor to the risk appetites of the clients as well too. But really, our philosophy is to let the business run and monitor it. And you nailed it. Make yourself less of a target. Attackers are opportunistic. Don't make yourself less of a target than the next person. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you are. If they can get $10,000 or $100,000 a day or a week, that's a pretty good living for someone actually, really living anywhere, living on the other side of the world, living here. Like that's, they can make a decent living off that. So
100%. Well, I think that's a great place to finish up, Marty. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do another one with a day in the life of a ransom remediation. So once again, thanks so much, and say hi to the team for me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Craig. It was a pleasure to be here, and yeah, really appreciate you having us on. And again, you guys are just such fantastic partners, and the work you do is so good. And we deal with a lot of partners here at Field Effect, and I can certainly say that Onit's at the top of the list. So,
oh, thanks so much. Really appreciate that feedback, Marty.
Awesome.
All right, man. We'll catch up next time.
All right, take care.